Hello, everyone. It is so wonderful to see this room full of faces. Thank you all for being here. And happy Pride! My name is Bonnie. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm the poetry event coordinator here at Brookline Booksmith. Today, it is my absolute pleasure to host co-editors James Crews and Brad Peacock with contributors Eben Bein and Lisa Breger to celebrate the release of Love is for All of Us. Before I do introductions, I have just a few housekeeping notes. Firstly, copies of this wonderful book are available for sale at the back counter over there. I encourage you to support these poets' work in whatever way you can, whether that means buying a book, following them online. Being here is a huge way to show support. Say nice things to them while you're here. And thank you for supporting both the work of these authors and poetry. It means the world. Secondly, please keep your phones off or on silent. Thank you for respecting these wonderful poems that we're about to hear. Please know as well that the event is being live streamed on this iPad right here. Hello to YouTube, although I don't think I'm visible right now. Our audience shouldn't be visible to our YouTube viewers, but if you don't want to be live on YouTube, just don't stand right in front of the iPad and you will be golden. And finally, we will have a Q&A toward the end of the event, followed by a signing. So hold your questions and your books to be signed until the end, but definitely have them ready to go. We do a lot of poetry events here at Brookline Booksmith. We have a couple that aren't quite on the website yet, coming up later this month. So keep an eye on brooklinebooksmith.com if you want to check out some more poetry. All right, housekeeping aside now for the fun part, introductions. Eben Bein is a biology teacher turned climate justice educator, activist, and multidisciplinary artist. They were a 2022 Writing by Writers Fellow and a winner of the 2022 Writers Rising Up Winter Variations Poetry Contest. Their poems can be found in the likes of Pinch, Nimrod Journal, New Ohio Review, or in their chapbook, Character Flaws. Yeah! They currently live in Massachusetts with their husband and poet friends. Lisa Breger was the director of the undergraduate writing program at Pine Manor College for many years. Currently, she leads workshops in poetry as a spiritual practice. In 2020, she received the Thomas Merton Award for Poetry of the Sacred and was runner-up for the Ruth Stone Poetry Prize in 2015. She lives by Lake Cochituate with her and their beloved English setter. Brad Peacock is a veteran writer and longtime organic farmer from Shaftesbury, Vermont, whose passion is to bring people closer to one another and the natural world. His poems have been published in several anthologies, and his op-ed pieces have appeared in newspapers across the United States. He lives with his husband, James, on 40 rocky acres in southern Vermont that they are restoring to a habitat for pollinators and native species. And finally, James Crews is the author of the essay collection, Kindness Will Save the World, and editor of several best-selling poetry anthologies, including The Wonder of Small Things, which was the winner of the New England Book Award, Healing the Divide, The Path to Kindness, a winner of the Novelist Award, and How to Love the World. He has been featured on NPR's Morning Edition and in People magazine, the Boston Globe, and the New York Times Magazine, to name a few. Thank you, James, Brad, Lisa, and Eben, for being here. As I mentioned previously, Brad and James are co-editors of Love is for All of Us, and Eben and Lisa are both contributors to this wonderful anthology. Love is for All of Us is a luminous and open-hearted anthology of poems from the LGBTQIA+ community, full of compassionate work of connection and affirmation that celebrates all kinds of love. It's a really beautiful book that uplifts the diverse voices of the queer community, and we are so lucky to get to hear a bit from it tonight, which feels like an especially fitting way to kick off this Pride Month. At a time when so much is at stake for queer and trans people everywhere, celebrating our existence, our place in this world, and the love that we have for one another is not only a joyous act, but a revolutionary one. We're so grateful to have these writers here to share their work with us. Everyone, please give them a warm welcome.
Okay, that's because there were a couple of people. Anyway, these seats are reserved.
Yes, whoa, that's really loud, sorry. There are some open seats in the front if anybody is looking for seats, and you're welcome to guide people to those seats if people come in. Just another little housekeeping issue there. That aside, welcome everybody. Happy Pride. We are so thrilled to be with you today in this space. I'm thrilled to be connecting with two of our wonderful contributors here, Eben and Lisa, to be traveling the country with my husband Brad in support of this book, which, 2 years ago when we were walking on the country roads in Vermont where we live, I was like, shouldn't we do a book of love poems by LGBTQ plus people? I had just been to the town's Pride Parade. I was like glowing still with this sense of connection and togetherness. And we had talked about it quite a lot before, and he said a resounding yes. And there have just been so many yeses since that moment. And I don't think we ever dreamed that this book would be as timely and necessary as it is right now. I think we both all wish it were not quite so timely and necessary right now. But that being said, we have been traveling, doing events together for the past month and we've had so many amazing experiences of this book and these poems connecting with people on such a deep level. And I think that when we gather in spaces like this, coming together for something that's larger than ourselves, larger than each of us as individuals, we are creating a safe, sacred space. And I think we need safe, sacred spaces all over the country, all over the world right now. So thank you for being a part of that tonight. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay, sermon over. No, I probably will say another sermon later, but I want to start with this next poem because, well, for two reasons. One is it honors the work that Brad does. He's a farmer and gardener, and so we live in the woods of Vermont, which is really, really different than this area and this place. I mean, just so different. And we kind of live in the middle of a garden, when it blooms every summer. And so it's become a source of solace and beauty, as you can imagine, for us. And I wrote this poem from a place of deep grief, and as I was, looking back at my own life and realizing, perhaps like some of you, that I didn't get everything I needed growing up, and yet the world is still with us. The world is still with me. And the other reason I like to share this, especially now, is that I was doing an online program and I read this poem. And someone, raised their hand and she said, I love this poem and I actually gave it to my trans grandchild. And now they've been having a tough time and now they carry it in their pocket and take it out and unfold it whenever they need to feel that kind of burst of goodness and memory that there is still goodness in the world. So a long preamble to a very short poem, but this is The World Loves You Back. Even if no one ever touched you with the tenderness you once needed, believe that the world's been holding you in its arms since the day you were born. You are not an accident or afterthought. Let rain on the roof remind you. Let sun on the skin or the neon orange of a Mexican sunflower at which a hummingbird pauses to drink. There are so many ways to hold and be held, and you could spend your whole life tallying them up without ever reaching the end of the list. So that's thank you. That's a poem I love to open with. I just think of it as this blessing to offer the world. It was first a self-blessing, and then it gets offered to the world. I think that's how a lot of creative work actually begins. The next poem I want to share, I wrote while thinking about Mary Oliver's famous quote. She has this wonderful quote. She says, "When it's all over, I want to say that I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms." First of all, I love that she was both bride and bridegroom. So Mary Oliver, way ahead of her time, let's just say it. And also, I love that this idea of being married to amazement. And so I was thinking, like, what does it mean truly to be married to amazement? And Brad probably gets tired of hearing this story, but I thought, I actually am married to amazement because Brad teaches me so much about loving the natural world and being closer to it. And he'll be embarrassed, but I will just say he has that effect on everyone that he is around. He creates a safe space wherever he goes. And so this was written in honor of him and our coming together. And it's the first poem in the book. I never would have been egotistical enough to put the first poem of my own in a book that I edited, but he insisted. And I said, okay, honey. So this is Married to Amazement, with thanks to Brad Peacock and Mary Oliver Book. The man I married sat next to me after our wedding. October light pouring in over dusty pews as he loosened his tie and sipped from a cup of apple cider, closing both eyes to savor the taste. Now I think I didn't marry him so much as his amazement for the everyday, the way he still gasps each time we see something new, a baby painted turtle plodding through a stream in the quarry, or a neon orange caterpillar inching across crisp leaves on the trail. How he kneels to film it from every angle, while I crouch beside him in awe of his awe, learning all that I can.
I mean, it's pretty amazing that James can recite two poems like that. I'm getting there. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I mean, it's just truly an honor to be in community with you all, to be doing this with my husband, and to create this book, to get the overwhelming response that we have from people has just been, has touched my heart very, very deeply. So thank you all. I'll start with a poem of mine, and it's called Pockets of Joy. Cleaning out old clothes from childhood, I came across a pair of worn-out camouflage jeans I once had to be bribed to get out of. Holding them in my hands sparked flashes of the days spent under the canopies of trees on fire with color. Back when I took the time to savor chasing falling leaves, relishing in the excitement each time I caught one in my outstretched hands, depositing them in my pants as if they were a treasure to be withdrawn at some later date. Perhaps it was a premonition for this moment when life feels less simple, and we all need to reach into our pockets of joy, pulling out golden shards of oak and maple leaves stowed away from all those years ago, until it is finally time to cash them in for that precious memory of happier days we thought we had forgotten. Thank you, and if you're ever on the back roads in Vermont in the fall, you will see two men like whirling dervishes trying to catch leaves on our road. It still happens. The next poem I'm going to read is from a dear friend of the both of ours, Rosemary Watola Chomer. It's called Watching My Friend Pretend Her Heart Isn't Breaking. On Earth, just a teaspoon of neutron star would weigh 6 billion tons. 6 billion tons is equivalent to the weight of every animal on Earth, including insects, times 3. 6 billion tons sounds impossible until I consider how it is to swallow grief. Just 1 teaspoon, and one may as well have consumed a neutron star. How dense it is, how it carries inside the memory of collapse, how difficult it is to move then, how impossible to believe anything could ever lift that weight. There are many reasons to treat each other with great tenderness. One is the sheer miracle we are here together on a planet surrounded by dying stars. One is we cannot see what anyone else has swallowed. And I love that poem so much because in the epilogue I talk about being discharged from the military for being gay. And coming home, I was not out to any of my family or friends. And the shame and guilt that I felt, you know, it's a miracle that I'm alive, because suicide was a daily struggle. And it would literally take someone just waving at me to keep me alive another day. So it's these little tiny acts of kindness that we may not even think of as anything. It's just second nature to us. Of course we're gonna hold the door open for someone. Of course we're gonna look at someone and say hi, or put our hand up and wave. But it literally can save someone's life. So I just want us all to remember that. Thank you.
Okay, so when this book arrived at my house, I was so excited. I read it cover to cover and wept. So that's just a little heads up. That is how this cookie can crumble. No promises going forward. I was gonna say I apologize in advance, but I really don't. So, Brad's story is very compelling to me. I was never in the service, but I was discharged from my family, and I'd like to start with a poem about that. I find this book and this project and being here to be very healing, but to talk about healing, one must acknowledge the wound. So this one is called Outages. And Macy May is in it. It's my dog. Outages. Blizzard winds screech through sheets of snow. Ice from bare trees lash the house, and the dog takes to my lap for dear life. I stroke her fine fur and whisper, "Is okay, little puppy," surrounded as we are by reports of predicted accumulation, widespread outages in a blizzard that rages all night. I can't imagine the dog cast out in this to fend for herself, find shelter, or cower by the door to be let back in, the way it was with me in the February nor'easter, 1978. My parents' sick with the knowledge of my deviation from their dreams, as if biting the hand that instructed me to marry a man. And though I tried to keep it hidden and went home because I had no job or place to live, young as I was and drug addicted, "Your father can't handle it," my mother said. "Go live with the lesbians." But I didn't know any lesbians, which I might have told them, yet it didn't matter. I was dead to them, as was tradition. I had never been dead before, so it came as a shock as I walked beneath the flailing power lines, those indestructible giants of childhood, knowing they might not hold. So life is long and relationships have healed some, and my family, my mother danced at my wedding recently. My father was speaking with me, and our last words were words of love. When he was dying, we FaceTimed. I was sick, going through cancer treatment, so I couldn't visit, but I would have visited. And actually, his last words to me, we were FaceTiming, we were sitting on the sofa, and Annie was next to me, and the computer was here, and Archie realized she wasn't the center of attention, so she launched herself like this 50-pound spotted torpedo and landed flush on my lap. My father's last words to me were, "Holy shit." as is fitting to my dad. And after he died, my mother sent me an urn of ashes without any discussion. Annie and I were just trying to figure out what's in the box. I was like, "Oh, it's Dad in the box, of course." So thoughtful. This is called Urn. I take pieces of my father for open air rides west on Route 117, as if there's enough of him to admire the way the road winds over the Assabet River, like the bridge that went up over our differences, unspoken as they remained. No way to fill in the blanks, the years he couldn't look at me. "Just drive," he'd say, wanting none of this, leaning back in the passenger's side, glad not to be behind the wheel of responsibility. Maybe it was only one ride on Father's Day that I took him down from the shelf, palm-sized, bottled up as the time my mother made him visit me, and we played pool in silence. But before he left, he said, "I'm still your father, you know." But it was never like before. Before, we used to take long drives and sing along with the radio, sing loud and spirited, as if we both were good.
Ooh. Hi, everybody. What a treat it is to hear all of your words. I was going to read something else. So now I hope I'm not stealing somebody else's poem, but I need to read this Mark Doty poem from the anthology, partially because I love Mark Doty and also because I just spotted parents of my friend who introduced me to Mark Doty. So anyway. And on this trickiness of love and queer love and its intersection with families, and yeah, I'm just thinking about the uniqueness of that and how, yeah, I think it's all sorts of things enter families, and familial relationship like that it's so intimate and so close. So here's a conversation that Mark Doty is having with his dead mother. Apparition. I'm carrying an orange plastic bucket of compost down from the top of the garden. Sweet dark, fibrous rot, promising. When the light changes, as if somebody's flipped a switch that does what? Reverses the day? Leaves chorusing, dizzy. And then my mother says, she's been gone for more than 30 years, not her voice, the voice of her in me. You've got to forgive me. I'm choke and sputter in the wild daylight, speechless to that. Maybe I'm really crazy now, but I believe in the backwards morning, I am my mother's son. We are at last equally in love with intoxication. I am unregenerate. The trees are on fire, 58 years of lost bells. I drop my basket and stand struck in the iron mouth afternoon. She says, I never meant to harm you. Then the young dog barks down by the front gate. He's probably gotten out, and she says, calmly, clearly, go take care of your baby. And also, you guys were being all lovey-dovey, so I need to catch that train for a moment. My husband's in the back there, wearing a certain ring, and I just wanted to tell you guys a little story about it. A word, portienia. By the way, this is first published in the New Ohio Review, so shout out to them. A word. Meanwhile, I am sitting on a lozenge-shaped couch in the waiting area of a Cartier, wrinkling my nose at the etched perfume and the fake-looking straight couple and the Cartier Stories by You poster, sending you snaps of the Panther collection with hammy voiceovers. And there's no reason I, who have never and will never again enter a Cartier, should be so completely myself, except I know you will say yes. And being so sure makes me nervous, since you bought the band yourself years ago, convinced you would never meet someone, and just this morning handed it to me. Engrave something, 9 characters or less. Surprise me. And to make matters worse, I, who have vacillated for decades on a word, knew instantly what it would be. Yes, you've got me so diamond clear, so fit to burst, so chest full of yes compressions that when the sales associate messes up your pronouns a third time, I just give a watery thanks and duck out onto the street where actual people are. And 2 of them, maybe a couple, are laughing, like with their actual bellies, at what must have been a stupid joke. And I didn't hear a word of it, but now I'm laughing as well as crying, so completely at yes with myself. Walking home so fast, I'm almost running because I can't wait to tell you about it.
So, love stories. I mean, who can get enough of those? And there are plenty of those in the book. And, you know, it was important to us to include all kinds of love in this book. So there is the lovey-dovey romantic love that we are talking about. And there's also family love. There's self-love and love of nature and the world. And we wanted all of those to sort of blend together to create this, I don't want to call it a warm bath, but you know, when this book arrived for us, we opened the box, wept a little because one does, you know, when you create something that didn't exist before. And I started reading through it, and I sort of felt like, did I just make this for myself? You know, because I was pulled in and I was feeling held by these poems, and I'm not kidding, I really felt that. And, you know, I think it really came to the fore when I was being interviewed on a podcast, and I think I had read Brad's piece or shared one of his pieces from the book, and the host asked, you know, do you think you guys did this project to heal your younger selves? And it just really, you know, it's like the moment in the Mark Doty poem, splutter and choke. I'm like, yes, I think that was exactly why, but we didn't know that when we were choosing poems and putting it all together and doing the behind the scenes work that you have to do on a book. And I think it was only clear once we actually were able to hold the book, and especially, you know, seeing all of you out here receiving these poems that we worked so hard to come together with. So I think that sort of echoes what Lisa is saying, you know, that idea that we have to acknowledge the wound. And so I feel like even though, I mean, look at this bright cover with all the colors, and there are color illustrations by Lisa Congdon throughout.
They're so good.
One of my personal heroes. So it's a very happy book, and yet there's also, as Brad was kind of alluding to, there's a lot of grief in this book. And I think that given everything that's happening in our country and in our world right now, there's a deep well of grief that we're all carrying around. And it's, you know, I was just talking with my friend Claire before the reading that even deep moments of joy, which are also in this book quite a lot, those can also kind of activate that sorrow so that you feel joyful and sad. You feel joyful and grieving, delighted and grieving at the same time. So it's a roller coaster, I think, sharing this book and reading these poems. And we didn't plan this, but I'll continue with the theme of parental reckoning, I guess you would call it. Because one of my great regrets was my father died very suddenly when he was 43 years old, so younger than I am right now. And I never got to tell him that I was gay. I never got to come out to him and show him who I was. And this haunted me for years. And then I'm so grateful I have this writing practice, because this poem out of nowhere, somewhere, I don't know where it came from. And it reminded me that there were moments when my father not just accepted me, but embraced me, loved me for who I was. He was just using gesture instead of words. Now, I'm a word person, so you really need to tell me straight up how you're feeling and that I'm loved and all these things. Brad will tell you. And but I've learned to be more attuned to gesture, and I think, as Brad was also saying earlier, it is these small things that sometimes stay with us over a lifetime. We often think it's the big stuff, it's the big parties, the big celebrations, but it's these little moments given with great heart that I think open us up and really persist with us throughout our lives. So this is one of those poems, and some of you who know my work may already know this poem, but I love sharing it because I feel like it brings really both of my parents alive again, because they were very loving, very flawed people, and they did their best to let their strange child know that he was loved and embraced. So this one is called Telling My Father. I found him on the porch that morning, sipping cold coffee, watching a crow dip down from the power line into a pile of black bags stuffed in a dumpster, where he pecked and snagged a cam tab, then carried it off, clamped in his beak like the key to a room only he knew about. My father turned to me then, taking in the reek of my smoke, traces of last night's eyeliner I had decided not to wipe off this time. Out late was all he said, and then smiled, rubbing the small of my back through the robe for a while, before heading inside, letting the storm door click softly shut behind him. Later, when I came into the kitchen, I saw it waiting there on the table, a glass of orange juice he had poured for me and left sweating in a patch of sunlight so bright I couldn't touch it at first. We were just doing an event the other night, and I said, why do I write these poems that make me feel so deeply that I can barely get through without losing it? And then someone pointed out to me that you're not really losing it, you're finding it. That it's just been hidden. And I love that. This is another poem I've really enjoyed sharing, and for the first time, usually I put together my anthologies with the poems that I love the most that come across my desk, but we opened it up to submissions from the larger world, and we got, I don't know, was it 300? 300 submissions of 3 to 5 poems. So that was our reading for a few months, definitely. And this was one that came over to us, and as soon as I read it, I knew that I wanted to include it because it's about an everyday act that we all have to do, doing the laundry, but it takes that beautiful domestic act and just elevates it to the place of the sacred in a relationship. So this one is called Laundry, and it's by a poet named Carling McManus. Between the two of us, it's me who does the laundry. Alone in the basement, I draw out the trap, pulling the lint from the screen. Its gray surface tears, tender, between my fingers. Flecks of paper, an eyelash, a dog whisker. I find fibers from your red sweatshirt, my pink bra, the yellow underwear you picked up on our honeymoon. This muted fluff collects your smell, holds our skin. We call what I am doing a chore. The machine cycles from wet to dry, turning over another winter, another summer, another year. Kneeling before the dryer door, a dim light from a bare bulb overhead. I have everything I've ever wanted. Now, if only I could remember that every time I have to clean a lint trap, or do the dishes, or all these domestic chores. I love that poem for the way it opens us to this deep way of relating to life. I think poetry and art in general has the ability to do that so often for us, to take these everyday things and to just lift them up somehow.
As James was saying, we opened this up to submissions, and sometimes we find each other just sitting there reading at the table, and sometimes we would find one another breaking down at the table after reading. And this is one of those poems by Jason O'Toole, whose son died of cancer. It's called Father's Day. I'd like to be a father, you said, your last week alive. You'll make a great dad, I said. Imagine the baby you might adopt, who your partner might be, and me, a grandfather. Another Father's Day without you. Without you, I'm still your father. You'll never accept me as a son, you said when you came out as trans. You will always be my son. You would have made a great dad. So even though I have these all tabbed, it really doesn't matter. I can, sometimes James can read my mind and give me the poem that I'm looking for, and sometimes not. So this is by Rudy Francisco. It's called The Peace Lily. The peace lily is a flower that can grow and survive even if it's left in the shade. See, we don't always choose our environment, but we can't let that stop us from blooming.
I want to read one from the book by Vivishwa Ilongo called For Us. For Us. I was lost under what they said about me. I wore their words weighing more than my bones, carrying them everywhere I went. I couldn't find myself beneath those dirty fingerprints. It was not me I saw in the mirror, but I found myself for you, for me, for us. I pierced through the sun to burn it all and to come to you as I am. We'll meet under the moon while the night clouds float through my hair. I'll hold your hand and nothing will weigh me down while I fly in your love. So my wife is here, Annie. Being a good sport. So we got married. We've been together for quite a while, but we got married 12 years ago, something like that. And my best friend over here, Wendy, said all it took for you to get married was an act of Congress, because DOMA had just been overturned, and I didn't really want to marry without, the same rights and privileges as every other marriage. So DOMA was overturned, she said, and also an act of Congress and a bone marrow transplant was all you needed was to get married. And it was true. And this is for Annie. It's called In the Middle of Our Lives, for Annie. Yes, dear. For Annie, warming light of my life, imagine my days without you, desolate and alone. No sun through our lake house window, no Sunday French toast, you in your olive sweater, ready to shovel a path after the long storm. Who would help me with my snow pants or lace my boots? How could I tell if the woodpecker upside down at the feeder or the cardinal on a bare branch if it weren't for the way you whispered, honey, and my eyes open, dawn of a new day. Here in the middle of our lives, a parking lot kiss or knee-deep walk through a nor'easter with rackets and swimsuits in a gym bag we shared. You are all I want under moonlight, wolf moon or crescent, or when fog forms over the lake and the day goes gray and moist. You are all I want when the sun breaks, and the difficult world goes easy. Sound of summer songbirds, flames of lilac and gold in our garden. So this is actually I write, Annie, a poem every Valentine's Day, and this is from the Valentine's collection. And I have this other friend, and oddly, her last name is Valentine, and when she learned of this, she said, you poets have it so easy. You throw some words on a page and you're done for the holiday. Whereas I have to buy a gift and flowers and do dinner and chocolate and the whole 9 yards. And I looked at my friend Miss Valentine and I said, I have to do the whole 9 yards and write a
poem. For some of us, queer love starts with lust. Sometimes it also ends with lust or goes poorly. So just shout out to anybody who's single or frustrated or anyway. I can't read more of my own love poems next to what just happened. It's like I feel like I'm staring in the sun. It's beautiful. But anyway, so in the spirit of that, from my single days, where a lot of these poems in my chapbook come from that. Here's a love poem to my phone. Lover. The gentle way you wake me, one I could reach for without thinking, one who could never turn me off. I could just stare at you for hours, checking for signs of affection, attachment, tremor of you in the pocket of anything. Oh, how we light each other up. You dope kick window to my life. I look at you as I have looked at no one, lap glances, eye-reddening gazes, until my systems are backed up and my serratus superior, you told me, is knotted to the spine. You know the waves of my voice, ends of my sentences have scrutinized every ridge on my fingertip. The way you are there for me makes me hate myself for doubting how long you'll last when each time you fail me, you come back. Every bit who you used to be, but better. Read me a story. You know I will like the songs you play and the order you play them, be the perfect lover. Any of my favorites will do whenever the human one is late coming home or no longer in love. You need not touch me, because with you I touch myself. So I first encountered James' work in a Quaker practicing cohort, the secularized by Parker Palmer, this practice of circling and deep listening to each other. So I just wanted to read a poem that came out of that space when I first bumped into your words. Also on this theme of, there's the love that we feel for each other, and also the hunger, love for life. And this is a poem that happened right after a breakup where I was like, oh God, what am I doing, and why do I want so many people, and what's going on? So anyway, this is called "If You Shoot Me, We Fall in Love." Take me out in November, hunting season. I forgot my orange hat. Get me while I'm still fat and green and brown, and maybe I'm asking for it. Any fresh opening, a gush. Get me while the creek is barely a trickle, and the blast can be heard for miles. Sling me over, still warm. I'm calling like a great horned owl at noon. I can't wait. Calling you with coat the color of dead needles, shirt the color of living. I bet you drive me to the hospital. I bet before long, I'd have you seeing red everywhere.
So Brad is just going to read one more poem, and then we're going to have a little Q&A. So if you have any comments, any questions, anything that the poems brought up tonight.
So this is a poem that I've actually been working on for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. So there you go, dear friend. It takes sometimes it takes a long time. And it's called We Will Not Be Erased. And this is for my LGBTQ plus family. You can scrub letters from websites. You can take away our health care. You can do your best to strip away our humanity. We will not be erased. You can misgender people. You can continue your campaign of casual cruelty. You can burn these very written words, ban the books that mention our existence. We will not be erased. We are loving sons, daughters, and children. We are brothers, sisters, and siblings. We are family. We are friends. We are neighbors. We are those who care for your loved ones. We are those who risk our lives for your freedom. We are the farmers who feed your families. We belong in every community. We will never allow your darkness to diminish us. We are devoted prisms of brilliance whose collective fractals of light will forever find the fissures and the barriers you fabricate. We will never be erased.
Very beautiful and powerful note to end on. Thank you, Brad. And of course, thank you, James, Lisa, and Eben for sharing this beautiful work. And now it is our audience's time to shine. So if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand and I'll call on you. Yeah, go right ahead.
How long does it normally take to write a poem? 3 months.
I would say 1 day to 3 months, or possibly 10 years.
That sums it up for me.
Yeah, I don't mean to be flip about it. It really varies. I don't even sometimes know when a poem is done, but I think if you let it sit around long enough, you get a sense of like, okay, this is maybe on its way, and I only know something is done if I share it with other people that I really trust and care about.
Yeah, I was gonna say shout out to writing in community, right? And the ability to sit down with people who you trust and read your stuff and then say, hey, what does this do for you? What works and what doesn't? And that doesn't always tell, that isn't always the signal. Some of the signals come from inside you, or inside myself in my experience, to say that this is done. But yeah, on the bus ride over, I crossed out 2 lines from a poem that I read to my husband when I was proposing to him. Which on the one hand, like that's a beautiful moment, like an artifact in time. And also I look at something, I'm like, I don't need to say that, and here it is, 3 years later. And so that's also a wonderful thing about poetry, I find, is it is forgiving and evolving. Yeah.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Hello all. I just wanted to sort of like highlight the parts of the book that I loved the most, particularly from the writers before us. Eben, your lines about the morning cloaked butterfly that flickers an ellipse over the sunlit patch of grass. Lisa, I liked how your domestic details sort of just brought the poem together with the Sunday French toast, the olive sweater, the laced boots, and that line about the difficult world goes easy. Brad, thank you for your poignant and very honest epilogue. James, as I mentioned to you before, your poem, Telling My Father, had me hugging the book to my chest. And I think the sentence from a poem in the book that sort of sums up the general tenor of the book is in Moody Spade's poem. They write, "All I want is what I already have, the millions of quiet gestures that together compose a symphony of care." And thank you all tonight for your symphonies of care and of love and of joy and of gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Not to put any pressure on anyone to follow up that beautiful sentiment, but if anyone else has questions or
Yeah, if you didn't do your homework like Thomas, then you should probably
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
This is possibly kind of a downer, especially after that wonderful, and I apologize. But I am curious about, like, especially the really, like, to me it seems so wrong, like the confusion and fear I mean, like those over, I'm no stranger to it myself, with that like familial, sort of thing of like, there's the being unpleasant and then being torn out, and the like sorrow of not being able to express yourself fully, but like, I wonder if I could ask you guys to sort of like go more in depth with that, and like, how do you kind of grapple with that? Because like, obviously I know it's like a hugely multifaceted thing, and everyone's friends with it is as frizzy with enormous as it is in general. But how would you sort of begin to address kind of how that's been for you?
I guess I'll start with that. For me, it's been really important to find safe communities and affirming people and people whom I trust and walk with them. And there's strength in community, and to not let other people's prejudices define me. And so I'll pass the mic along, maybe somebody else has.
Yeah, it's a big question. We're grateful for the question. I think for me, I would echo a lot of what Lisa says, and I do think that so much, as I said earlier, is about community and coming together, and so I think a lot about people who may not have access to that community, and for whom that might be really difficult. So I think it's something that we're all sitting with, how to create those safe spaces that other people can access even from a distance. I still think a book is one of the best ways to do that because it's so transportable, and it is almost, something that I think I try to do when I make a book, write a book, edit a book. I try to intentionally make an aspirational world, a world that maybe is not quite always living up to the world that we would love to see, but that collectively creates another world for someone else to enter. And so, I think that helped me when I was coming out and when I was getting to know myself, is reading other stories, getting lost in novels, and really just inhabiting other people's stories, even if just for an instant in a poem. I think it's very powerful. And I've heard from a lot of people over the years who view these anthologies as, I don't know, saving graces. Someone wrote to me on Instagram a while back and said, I keep one of your books on my nightstand because when I wake up in the middle of the night, I can just read it and I feel like safe. And I will admit, I do, and now we do, try to choose poems that are affirming, calming to the nervous system, because we all kind of need that now, and that will hold us, even for just a few moments. And that's really important for me.
And I experience the poetry that you gather and the poetry that you both write in that way. It's so affirming. And but we also open with some painful, some of the painful parts of this. And that's one thing that I love about poetry is, confronting the fact that a really joyful experience trying to figure out this thing on a ring, for my partner was also accompanied by a totally clueless sales clerk and, and the poster that was, marketing, whatever. Anyway, and I love that, there's how books hold it, and there's also how poems hold complexity like that and say, we can put all of that, the pain and the love right there, and we are capable of containing it when we can see the page containing it for us.
That is a very powerful sentiment. Thank you for sharing. We do have time for one more question. I might see someone in the back. Go right ahead.
I'd like to believe that the arc of history is moving us towards justice, and I'm struck some by the intergenerational nature of the panel here, and despite the current administration, I'm wondering if you guys just comment on the sort of intergenerational work we have to do now to keep that trajectory of history going in the right direction.
Well, thank you for that. And so the question was sort of about this intergenerational work that we're all going to have to be doing, coming together to create the kind of country and world that we actually want to live in. And I'll just share, the other night we were doing an event at our local library, and someone came up to us and said, it's really nice to see people of our generation being the adults in the room. And I just was struck by that phrase, the adults in the room. And I think we all have to be the adults in the room, no matter how old we are. We have to be willing to stand up for what's right, willing to fight even sometimes for what's right, and willing to correct things and, calmly, gently, at times, take things in a better direction than they are now heading. So that's sort of how I frame that, think about that.
And I'll just say we did an event in Florence, Massachusetts, and we were accompanied by a queer kids chorus called Rhythm in Radiant. And it was pretty amazing. I basically couldn't talk, thanking the parents so much for being there and supporting their kids. That wasn't there for me growing up in rural Vermont. And I'm not even sure it still is. And I know it's not in some places. But it really made me think, why was I getting so emotional? What was it? And the word reimagine just kept going over and over in my head. And I think right now we're just all being asked to reimagine what country we want to be, what world do we want to be. And to see those kids and interact with those kids just gave me so much hope in reimagining a world where that just happens.
Okay, well, I have to say something because that was my dad who asked the question. So, intergenerational, one thing that I have loved about poetry is because it makes money and it's so unpopular. I shouldn't say that in front of you guys because thank God you're here. I can't believe there's this many people listening to poetry on whatever day, Thursday. But like these elders in this book, Ellen Bass and Richard Blanco and Mark Doty, they are some of my queer elders. And as a person who grew up in sneaky anti-queer Massachusetts, like where some of the outward stuff looks like it's going one way, and then we're actually not where we think we are. To me, to enter into a lineage of poets that go way back, including queer poets, some of our like founding voices in American poetry and beyond. I really enjoy thinking about that arc, and one of the cool things about the poetry community being small and tight-knit is that you then get to bump into these people, and so good on you guys for putting up with poetry and write a note to Carl Phillips. I had a class with him once. He's a cool guy, and so that this idea that we can sort of share words of affirmation about our own experiences at these different stages and really have a felt sense is a gift from our poetic elders. As much as I am excited to work with young people in my work and hear them writing and see how they understand their queerness, that's part of what brought me to using they, them pronouns, which was not a thing when I was a kid, and also oh, wait, that actually helps me feel expansive in my body. And I was a biology teacher, so it's true also that we have more bacterial cells in our body than we do human cells, so we are a they. Anyway, just it's that sort of lineage of poetry helping to us to tag, with words, the ways that our understandings of our lives and our queer lives changes is one of the great gifts of I think this art form, also this book.
It's so tiny, I want to honor your time. So, no worries, I will ask it then.
Go ahead.
It's so quick. We've been talking about really small, almost instantaneous little moments and little things, and I just am curious about what little things have been buoys for you all.
Yeah, for the small things.
Small things, yeah, that's my jam, for sure. I think, it's going to be obvious because we talked about the garden earlier, but just noticing what's blooming, geeking out a little bit over the fact that the peonies are slowly blooming and that it takes ants to help this process is a beautiful thing too. So just a lot of really noticing little things in the natural world. And I'm a meditator too, so just 10-15 minutes can really change my mood. So that's what.
Yeah, well, I think you stole my thunder, but that's okay. No, I think seeing the things emerge, in our garden is just amazing. And, we have Canadian lilies, which are not the most common thing coming up in our woods. And it's so exciting. I can't even tell you. It's so exciting. We've cordoned them off, so hopefully nobody steps on them or deer don't eat them, but the deer love them, so we'll see.
Okay, so we have a little frog pond, and it has fish in it, but the frog was sunning itself this morning, and they let me pat him.
I Oh God, sorry, I'm just like so taken by that story. Yeah, I was writing yesterday on a bench by the river, and blue heron. We're just gonna keep with the nature as teacher in this moment. Landed across from me and was just standing and taking its time, and it slowed down my own writing. This sort of like, oh, this isn't the part of the nature documentary. Look, the heron's not striking anything, it's not taking off, it's standing there, and then it's 10 minutes, and it's just so still. And this is actually most of our life. And so this like way that nature brings us into slowness, and poetry brings us into slowness. Such a gift that keeps giving. So yeah, slowness is my little thing.
Beautiful question. Thank you for asking it. A beautiful note to end on. Thank you all for sharing your answers. Thank you so much to our audience for being here, for the energy you brought into this room. It's really incredible. And for your love of this book and of poetry. Thank you. And your amazing questions as well. And of course, thank you, James, Brad, Lisa, and Eben, for this beautiful evening. A little housekeeping. If you would like to buy a book and get it signed, you can do so over there. Our poets will be here at this table to sign copies. And otherwise, have a wonderful evening. Thank you all so much again.
I do. Well, that's okay. Oh, sorry. You're good.